In Dallas, there is an intercontinental clash of epic proportions brewing. Many of the teams facing off have been rampaging through their home regions completely unchecked and have been, well, laying waste to most of the challenges that face them. These 8 teams will be battling it out for their share of $123,000 and a place in history. Joining me to discuss the Dallas finals of Season 1 of the Impact League is noted streamer and caster LucyLuce. Now, thank you very much for joining me. What's it been like to have been part of the Impact League so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing to see all these women's teams coming together and grinding it out over the group stages in the different regions. And it's just sort of breathed fresh life into the scene, you know, particularly over the last couple of years where it's dropped off a bit for various reasons. It's really injected fresh blood into the scene and a new life into it.
Yeah, that's been a big part of it, is the number of teams who started signing up for things again. You know, the cash cups have been, the brackets have gotten slightly bigger than they were at times, and it's been pretty cool to see that sort of reinvigoration. You know, the enthusiasm's back in some senses. But yeah, we've had the entire regular season played out. We've decided who the 8 are coming through, and let's be honest, each region has had their big, Titanic favourite come out and just sweep most of the other teams aside. Like, it's not been the closest of things at the top of each table, has it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got your big 3, don't you? And in each of the regions, and no surprises to see 6-0 from each of those teams, I think, in each region. But, it has also been really the story of the other teams, the ones that have stood up and challenged the big ones and come out through and qualified as well. So, it's not just been the story of those teams, but the story of all these new exciting talents as well.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into them because, as everyone knows, the story of David is far more compelling than that of Goliath. Even if Goliath has been winning a lot recently, we still think there's some chances for some other lesser-known talents, some up-and-comers to really make an impact. But we're going to start with one of the massive favourites, and they're from the South American region. It's Furia FE. Now, they've been South America's most dominant team for, it feels like a while now. They've won every regular season series without dropping a map, and ended the season with a plus 102 round differential. Lucy, what has been the most impressive thing about this team so far, aside from that ridiculous record?
Yeah, I mean, Furia are incredible, and one of the teams to be watching out for to probably take the whole event. I mean, even looking back before Impact League in 2021, they won pretty much every single event that they came in, I think, except one in terms of like the women's events they played, and they came second in that one. So, they were absolutely dominant during the kind of online era, I suppose, where it was just playing against other South American teams. And it's good to see them bringing that continuously into Impact League. And just consistency across the core, I think, is the big thing that makes Furia so powerful. Like, there's a female CS ranking, similar to HLTV by femalecs.com. And in the 2021 ranks for Furia, they had 4 of their players in the top 10. It's like Olga was number 2, Gabby number 6, Ka, who's their AWPer, number 9, and Iza number 10. So like, that's crazy amount of talent just in one team.
Yeah, absolutely stacked. And I think what helped them out really to develop that talent and now come in as a lot of people's favourites has been the fact that the female scene in Brazil, or South America in general, didn't die off to the same extent as it did in Europe. We still had far more events, far more prize money to be won, and far more teams, I think, competing throughout 2021. 2022, I think Europe's taken over again in terms of volume of players available, but yeah, Brazil really did an outstanding job during that year, keeping things alive, keeping things going. And you mentioned some of those players. If you look at the few stats that actually end up being collected by HLTV about these players, it paints a picture of a team with 3 titans leading an already stacked roster. So Gabby, as you mentioned, and then Olga, especially, has put up numbers that would boggle like the mind. It's absolutely insane, incredible to watch, and incredible to reflect upon. But I think something that's kind of been missing from a lot of women's scene has been a passionate engagement from the players and fans, and I think that's something they can bring. A lot like their male counterparts, we expect a lot of flair, a lot of big emotional moments out of this team, and that's what making me personally so excited to actually watch them play come Dallas. Obviously not in person, because I ain't got that money, but it should be a fun thing to watch on the stream as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually an interesting point you made about Furia as well in particular, is that they actually are quite reminiscent of the men's Furia roster, and that they're very aggressive. They go for a lot of those very unorthodox strategies. So I think they're really excited to watch because of that, particularly Olga, who's, I guess, plays a lot of the entry roles on that squad. Very, very aggressive and very exciting and dynamic player.
Yeah, it should bring a lot of fire. I think that's going to be awesome. Let's move on now to the Queens of Europe, as I think we should call them, as Nigma Galaxy. Lucy, Nigma Galaxy also came through undefeated. Was it all plain sailing, or did they face any real hurdles along the way?
Yeah, I mean, not only undefeated, but they didn't drop a single series during groups or playoffs, but they only dropped one map during the entire season, and that was in OT. And that was just in the first week. You could almost write off to nerves, particularly because they only just brought in their newest player, Kat, basically just as the season started. But she slotted in perfectly with that squad, and yeah, they've had a flawless run through the European stage.
Yep, really, really good. And the question I ask myself is, how do I highlight one player on this roster? How do I say this player is the best one? Because it's kind of difficult. Like, even the IGL puts up pretty incredible fragging numbers, some great highlights, and when you look at the depth of the team, my biggest worry when they brought in Kat was, would she be able to fill the shoes of Kelly, who was considered, one of these really great anchoring players, lurking players, and I think she has done, and some would argue, and then some, because they have looked superb with her filling in that role. Something that a lot of people didn't think they'd be able to really replace was Kelly, and yeah, she's been amazing, as you said. That first series loss, maybe also they were integrating her. She hadn't quite found the spots, quite found the spaces, the little chinks in the armour that Kelly was so known for finding. But since that moment, she has been superb, and the team, of course, have never lost the steam, really.
Yeah, I mean, Kat, to me, is probably one of the stand-up players from this season. She actually has the highest rating. I mean, in terms of rating, we obviously don't have HLTV for all of the games, but we can get some of the HLTV 1.0 ratings because that's a bit easier to get the formula of using the demos and things. And Kat is their highest rated player using those formulas for the season, which is really impressive for a new player going into the squad. And that's probably partly because when you are playing those lurk positions, it's a bit more freedom given to you. So it probably is a bit easier to sort of start off and integrate, but it just feels like she's a natural part of the team now.
100%. Another player, well, I think the duo of Tori and 23 for me is always really fun to watch. And you see it in the numbers. If you look them up, those two alongside Vilga take almost all the opening duels. Anna is used almost like a pure closer, some would say. In that sense, she's alive late rounds. She's alive when the bomb's down, when there's a retake to be won. It's those two, Tori and 23, with Vilga's kind of guidance from afar almost, that take those opening duels, create the advantages that they're then so good at converting afterwards.
Yeah, Anna's a fantastic clutch player, so you definitely want her alive at the end. But yeah. 23 and Tori just open everything up. Vilga's always not afraid to sort of run in. Very aggressive player in that regard. But 23, probably the most consistent rifler on the team, I would say.
Yeah, quite insane, considering she's 20, I believe. Like, not unlike what the name suggests, she is 20 years old, the youngest player on the team, I think. And yet, yeah, as you said, consistent, which is not something you usually associate with the younger players. That's been absolutely amazing. She was doing this even in 2021. The few events I got to actually watch her play, she was already that much of a beast. So seeing it come into the Impact League and hopefully into Dallas will be immense.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, NGX are my pick to go all the way in Dallas. They are my favourites to say. Like, they are the team I think will actually win this title for the pride of EU in some cases, but also because they're the ones I've gotten to watch the most. I've really gotten to fall in love with their play style, the way they smash your face in and then sweep you under the rug afterwards. Oh, it's something else. It's quite a sight to behold.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to call whether it's Nigma, CLG Red, or Furia that is going to be that one that dominates. And that's the most exciting thing, right? Because we haven't had an international LAN in years. So we don't know how these teams are going to compete against each other, even though they've all had very similar runs in their home regions. So it's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, whose meta is going to come out on top? Like, are we going to be playing EUCS in the women's scene for the next year, or South American, or North American? Are they actually that different? We don't actually really know until we put them literally head to head. So yeah, that's going to be awesome. I hope they're all raring to go to really represent their region and take a bit of pride in this. All right, next, CLG Red, the final of these three big names, big favourites. And when you look at round differential, I think they could be considered the biggest favourite. They had an absolutely absurd, I think, plus 152 difference after the group play, and they only lost 40 rounds in 12 maps. How is that even possible? Like, that's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, they're just insanely dominant, aren't they? I think in terms of the group stages, they put like 5-16-0 maps up. Like, it's not just like beating the other teams, it's beating them in an absolutely devastating fashion. So they're on a whole nother level when it comes to the NA teams. It could be that maybe the groups just were set up in such a way that they were able to be so dominant as well, just because they were groups of 4 teams. So during that season, in the double round robin, they were only playing those sort of same opponents. So I didn't really get to see them play some of the other top teams as much in NA that were in Group B. But still, I mean, absolutely dominant affair.
Yeah, we say that, and the top team of Group B couldn't beat the second best team of CLG Red's group, which makes you think, well, this is a canyon and then some between the number 1 and number 2 team of NA. Like, my word, they really have distinguished themselves. Individually, my pick of the lot is Emmy. I think, I didn't count exactly, but I was going through the maps, and she had more maps, I think, with over 100 ADR than lower, which is smurfing, really, isn't it?
She's definitely the standout player. I mean, all the players in CLG Red can pop off. They're one of the most well-known teams. Some of the most well-known players. Obviously, you got Goose Peter in there. Kelsey is also someone that I think is worth keeping an eye on. She was only brought in December last year, and she's fit in really well. Been hugely impactful, and definitely someone to watch for the future.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting one, because I was going to ask actually about those newer players, because CLG Red, it feels like they've been around forever. But it's actually kind of a newer breed, a newer version of CLG Red, because many of the old legends have moved on or retired, and so you're now left with Goosebreed, I think, being the most veteran alongside D.
Yeah, I think the two of them have been, I think Di's been in the roster since forever. I think she's been in there, from day dot, I think, almost. But yeah, I think Julie came in some point during the pandemic years, and then Kelsey obviously in December. So those two are a little bit newer. Yeah,
a little bit newer, less tenured, but clearly still contributing in their own ways, because the team haven't missed a beat really. They've just kept sweeping everyone aside, and hopefully they give us some more of that in Dallas. They're on home soil. I expect them to face more resistance from the South American and European contingencies than they did in those group stage games. But yeah, still a very dangerous team, very scary. Next, actually, at the rebirth of the women's scene in 2022, Big Equipa were not really, or Equipa as they were called at the time, they weren't really considered one of the best teams in Europe. I think in the first Catch Cup they received the 8th seed, or something like that, and they made it a point to correct that. Like, they took a pair of Cash Cups from Nigma Galaxy, and they also ended up, I believe, sweeping through their group as well. I need to go find that number.
Yeah, they're in the same group as Nigma Galaxy, which I think maybe led to them being overlooked a little bit, because, obviously Nigma Galaxy are Nigma Galaxy. So, it didn't necessarily look like they were going to even make it through to the playoff stage, let alone to Dallas. But I think they surprised everybody.
Yeah, they surprised everyone, because they've been... Yeah, that's it. So it was actually the Navi Javelins, as they're now known. Thank the heavens I'd never have to say that Polish name on camera. I know some of you in the casting booths did, and I think you got the hang of it pretty quickly, but... Yeah,
Totalnie Negative, I believe. Something along those lines.
I could never have said that, but yeah, that was the top team out of Group B, who did go 6-0. But then Equipa beat them, and Equipa have been, big Equipa as they are now. In a lot of big games, have been able to show up. Sure, it's all online, there's no crowd, no face-to-face, none of that stuff that a LAN usually brings, but they have been quite impressive in big games, haven't they?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think part of that comes to the experience that this squad has, because the sort of main core of Jenny, 80, Ada, and D7, they've been together for a couple of years. They were the former Giants Gaming squad, so they have previously played under an org before the dark times. And then they came back together for the Impact League, which is where a lot of these teams, they've come back because of Impact, and that's been a huge boon to the scene. And they brought in Zana as their AWP player, and she has been insane in terms of her impact. By far the best player on the squad.
Yeah, that's been something else I've picked up on, is Zana is class on the AWP. And then the other player who really stood out to me was Jenny R. Like, Jenny really was the easy way to put that. She is, as a rifler, like opening frags, multi-kills, the stuff we just usually label impact. I think it's just her bread and butter. Like, she just wakes up and says, how many sites am I cracking open today? Just looks at the list. But no, yeah, those two have been outstanding. And the team, yeah, not dominant in groups. I think they're the one exception, but scary in their own right because of how good they've been in these big moments, in these big games. They're definitely a team to be afraid of. If you have to play them in a playoff best of 3 and you're the favourite, I would be quaking my boots. I would be preparing all night for them. I would lose sleep over it. It's one of the most scary playoff teams I think there are at this event.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's all an experience, right? And I think that's what allowed them to have that upset against Na'Vi and to make it to Dallas.
100%. And our next team is another one who kind of had to change the narrative, or they refused to be written off, and that was Black Dragons female. Black Dragons had to go through the gauntlet, they had to go through the open qualifier just to make it to the Impact League. They didn't get one of the invite slots, and they ended up actually making it through quite convincingly. Like, if the South American division, I think it's the only one with 2 6-0 like top teams in the same
I
way.
think in terms of like the group, their groups were probably the most competitive, and like especially in kind of the middle bit of it. And I think the Liberty and Endgame were both teams that were able to, or could have stood up against Black Dragons, but Black Dragons came out ahead.
Yeah, Black Dragons were able to go 6-0, and the other team that you just mentioned, Liberty, were the ones who were invited. They're the ones who maybe were expected to be that 6-0 favourite. And no, it was Black Dragons who were able to pull it through. So from watching them, what has been, I think, kind of the key to them being able to look like such a dominant champion, even if they were in a stacked group?
Yeah, I mean, they're just a very solid squad. Nani is an incredible multi-fragger, one of their riflers. And then alongside her, Youngher on the AWP, just very, very consistent. But I think they're just a team that has been playing together for some time. They've got a lot of synergy. A funny story about them, actually, they're playing with a stand-in, actually. So Dina is the stand-in that they've got of them. Had to play in because their regular fifth, Poppins, is too young to compete in the league.
Really?
I think you have to be 16 to play. And so, yeah, couldn't compete. So they've been playing with a stand-in, and they've still managed to come through the groups with a flawless run.
Well, that's insane. Yeah, and that means one for the future, I guess, because a 15-year-old who they wanted to be on their team couldn't. I mean, in a year's time, that's might be another star for this already quite stacked roster. So more to come, I think, from Black Dragons. As you mentioned, the 2 players, I had also noted down Youngher, Nani. I think those are 2 to watch out for on the big stage in Dallas. And I think now we're going to quickly move on to the mystery teams, as I've decided to label them. The South African and Australian or Oceanic teams who I really do not know a lot about. I mean, ATK, they're formerly Quality Kermits, but after winning the region, they were given a sponsorship or backing from ATK to allow them to come to Dallas. How much do you know about this roster?
Yeah, so they're veterans of the scene, this team. They got together for the Impact League, although they did actually play last year in the Girl Gamer Festival, which is one of the larger events that's on outside of ESL, which they did win. So they've got experience. And yeah, during the qualifier run, they upset the favorites, which was the ATK Faye team. And then they got through on back-to-back OT maps after losing their opening map as well. So, they really showed their resilience. But, that they've got some players that are quite tenured. I think KC is the player that, when I reach out to the team to get a bit more information about them, they all said that she was the player to watch out for. She is easily the best female player in South Africa. That's their words. So yeah, definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, because I saw that they had one of the most ridiculous looking scorelines to qualify. Losing the opening match 16-3. Most teams, maybe they don't fold completely, but there's no way they then muster the energy, the effort, the resilience to get an overtime victory, 19-16, then another one back to back to bring it back. That's quite an incredible turning of the tide. Must have been an absolute thriller to watch, but there's no VOD to go look through. There's you can download them and watch them. There's no commentary. There's nothing that I could find which would have added, I think, a bit to that sort of excitement.
Yeah, I think the Dusty one, actually, which is the first OT, I think they won that off the back of a 1v1 that sent it to OT. So it was, very nail-biter. They got them across the line. And against a lot of favourites as well.
Especially, yeah, because they're the only ones, them and someone else are the only two teams in that sort of bracket who didn't really have any sort of org sponsorship. They were just a kind of mixed team. Well, a mixed team of players who clearly know what they're doing, but still not the favourites at any point, and yet they pulled it across the line. And finally, I think this should be your time to shine. It's the Oceanic Qualifiers Mindfreak. Let us have it. What is the masterclass on Mindfreak? What is there to know?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Oceanic scene is it's shrunk a lot. I think the pandemic and Valorant, in all honesty, have had a big impact. I mean, not just in Oceanic, but certainly felt there a lot because the scene was already not on the sort of scale of Europe or the Americas. So there's only a couple of orgs that are really in the scene, and Mindfreak is the most prominent. This particular roster, I think they picked up their latest two players earlier this year, which is Eminent and Viscose, who are two very young, up-and-coming players with very sharp aim. They're probably the ones that I'd be looking at to really make the difference for them. But they're a big question mark because we don't really know how they'll compete on the big stage. They do have some experience in the squad. I think Mish, who's one of the players, one of the riflers, has played against some of these other teams before, but it's a big unknown. The only thing I know is that I promised to do a shoey if they make it to the finals, so we'll see if that happens.
I mean, we'd all love to see that. That'd be quite entertaining to see on the broadcast, which is going to be coming, for those who don't know, from Stockholm. As you told me just before we went on air, or before we started recording, that the broadcast team will not be in Dallas, which I thought was too bad, but I'm sure the Stockholm producers will enjoy watching your shoey if that does happen. We all hope for their sakes it does, but they've overcome quite some odds. I'm not putting even a penny on them to do it.
Yeah, they're probably the total underdog. I think out of all the teams, I think them and maybe Pls Send Help are probably the two huge underdogs.
Well, that's it. Pls Send Help, our final team. And I left them for last because, they don't have a logo on Wikipedia. There's not much else that went into that sort of reasoning, but they're a side who kind of came out of nowhere, I feel, but they've played some really great CS, and the fact they had to deal with, the CLG Red of their group, lost those games, but still sweep everyone else away to make it through to the playoff and then beat Sapphire's team, whose name eludes me off the top of my head.
The Little Box is who they beat, which I think that as mentioned, that was a bit of an upset because they were one of the invited teams and are probably one of the best NA teams as well. So that was a pretty huge victory to take.
Yeah, huge scalp for them. And one of the most fascinating parts of it is that Senna, their AWPer, 33, another player just adding to the list of people who just refused to allow this arbitrary cutoff that a lot of people enforce when it comes to esports to be real. Just absolutely amazing fragging throughout the entirety of the sort of group stage and playoff run. At this age, I mean, it boggles my mind, how did this team come together? Because I know not all of them are of the same age. Are they all veterans of this NA scene, or are they buddies?
No, I think they literally got together for Impact. And I mean, that's the story for so many of these teams that weren't the established names, right? ESL, they injected so much life into the scene with the GGforAll and the Cash Cups and everything, and just giving the opportunities, because there hasn't been those opportunities, and other games have presented opportunities, particularly in regions like NA. So yeah, I mean, we're already seeing the fruits of that labor, that investment in teams like Pls Send Help, in all of basically half the teams that we've discussed today are here because of Impact and are formed for that. So yeah, they literally just got together. They didn't know each other before that. I don't think any of them knew each other before that. And they just got together for Impact League and have hit the ground running.
Yeah, really great story. It's going to be fascinating to follow as the event goes on. And the groups have actually been revealed. So we saw the opening matchups. I think some people who follow the scene will have noticed. So we have in one group, that's Group A, Big Equipa, COG Red, Black Dragons, and Mindfreak. And out of Group B, Nigma Galaxy, Pls Send Help, Furia FE, and ATK. So 2 of the Titans, as it were, and ending up in Group B. That's going to be, I guess, the group of death. Pls Send Help. The name now rings truer than ever, because they've got one hell of a task to get out of that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just looking at the groups that we have, it feels like Group B should be fairly decided looking at it, but because it's such a big question mark, like we don't really know what these teams are going to play like against each other. There could be upsets, and I'm particularly looking at Group A for the huge upset potential, just because it is just COG Red from the big 3 in there. So that second spot, it could go to really any of these teams.
Yeah, so you're looking, I think your odds have gotten a little better for your Mindfreak to make it out, because they don't have to deal with 2 of those huge teams, but they still have to face Black Dragons, who went 6-0. They still have to face a Big Equipa, who, as we've said, are big game players. Maybe that work in your favour. They might not take the little name Mindfreak as seriously as they would have Nigma Galaxy. Maybe that will be a little thing you can lean on. I don't know. We're clutching at straws here, trying to make it happen.
Well, I mean, the advantage for these underdog teams is, I mean, who's going to be able to find VODs of Mindfreak to study? Who's going to be able to find VODs of the quality tournaments? Whereas if you want to watch back how Nigma Galaxy play, how Furia plays, it's all out there. It's so easy to study. So, if they've got the coaches behind them, which I know these teams do, then I think there's a chance that they can maybe cause some upsets.
Okay, well, we'll find out come Friday next week. That's when everything kicks off. That's when the ESL Impact League Season 1 finals debut, and I don't know about you, but it's going to be kind of hard to decide which games to watch, because I think next Friday the schedule's stacked already. We've got the Impact League, we have Dallas itself starts Monday and runs all the way through. A lot of Counter-Strike to watch, aren't we, over the Jubilee?
There is a lot, but the Impact League opening matches are all best of ones, so very easy to squeeze those in and get a taste of the scene. You can see all 8 teams playing in the space of 4 or 5 hours, so why not?
Yeah, why not tune in, find out, and support what is still, in my opinion, one of the biggest events we have going on right now in terms of the scale of this this clash, as I put it before, like the Intercontinental Clash. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to sort out, a lot of pride on the line. And hey, at this event, no one's, except Black Dragons now, it turns out, sending standings. No one's, having to make last-second replacements. These are the 8 teams that were meant to be here. These are the 8 teams that should have been fighting for this money. And I think it's going to be an absolute thrill ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for it, just to see which team will come out on top.
All right, well, thank you for joining me, Lucy. And yeah, that's all for this one. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, sub, comment, all that stuff. Makes me happy. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.